really connect to those students and have them participate as well. So no cuss words, because moms might be watching. So let's get the event started. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this event, Dr. Lin, the Associate Vice Provost for Grad Studies.
Thank you, Tess. Good morning. Welcome to Books and Bagels. Books and Bagels is the brainchild of the GSA and the OGS, in particular Jess Snyder and Natalie Marciano. It is an attempt to provide a showcase for the research of Drexel's doctoral students. Each session will have a panel of speakers who are asked to pitch their presentations to an audience of peers and faculty, who themselves work in areas that do not overlap significantly with those that are being highlighted. In this way, this conversation between the panel and their peers and faculty will allow our doctoral students and the faculty who guide them the opportunity to learn from, to understand, and perhaps appreciate the efforts of their friends in other disciplines. It is also the organizers' hope through this kind of event that we will realize that there are students here who are doing research that we can all be justifiably proud of. In looking around at this morning's audience, I see a lot of familiar faces. In particular, I want to acknowledge the presence of our Provost Dr. Greenburg and Dr. John Dinardo, who have taken time from their busy schedules to grace the occasion. And I'd like to invite Dr. Greenburg just to say a few words for this kickoff event. Mark.
Thank you, Ted. Good morning.
Good morning.
Come on, are these Drexel students here or are these sort of from some other school? Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. That's the energy level we like to see around here. When I heard about this initiative, I congratulate the leaders of the GSA on coming up with this idea, and I thank Dr. Lim and his colleagues for arranging for this to happen. I thought, wow, this is a terrific idea. I must admit it was the bagels part that attracted me more than the books. I'm an English professor. I've read lots of books, but I think that this is a wonderful idea. And the reason for it, I think, is that as you progress in your careers, right now you're working with mentors in a particular area. Now, those areas themselves may be interdisciplinary. I recognize that, and this is where the world is going. But increasingly, when you finish graduate school and you become professional researchers, either in academia, in the private sector, you'll be interacting with colleagues from all sorts of different fields. And so the more interaction you can have now, the greater understanding you gain of what other people are working on, what the hot areas are in a variety of fields. You will see opportunities for yourself to contribute. You will see opportunities to engage others and bring them into your research, into your lives. And if nothing else, the fact that you're here in graduate school tells me you're intellectually curious. So even if there isn't a payoff where, you decide you could work with him on a project because you just heard about each other's research and there's some point of contact or deep engagement possibly, you're just interested folks. You're intellectually curious, and you're going to learn things today that you didn't know before. You're going to hear from people working in areas that you weren't aware of, but you're going to know what the problems are that we're facing and how people are going about addressing those problems. And so I think for all those reasons, this is an exciting opportunity, and I'm really delighted that Drexel is sponsoring this, that you're involved in it, and that we have such a nice forum, and of course nice bagels and coffee to go with it. So I'm very proud of this. This is something we should be doing, and I look forward to doing more of it. So congratulations. Good luck with your panel. I wish I could stay to hear about it, because like you, I like hearing about new ideas. Unfortunately, I have a cabinet meeting to go to, and I can tell you, there aren't going to be that many exciting ideas. But it's part of my job. So while I'd sooner be here listening and learning, I'm going to hear a presentation on compliance and legal issues. But it comes with the territory. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Mark.
Good luck with your panel. I'm delighted to see you.
each panelist, and you notice that there are four seated up here in front, each panelist will have 10 minutes to let you know what their research area is, why they got into it, and what they have found that they deem to be so exciting that they want to share it with you. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. At the end, I hope to be able to pull everything together and to leave you with some thoughts about the issues, challenges, and the open problems the panel will have raised. Now, to kick things off, and to add to what I've stated about the aims of Books and Bagels, is Gaurav Goyal. Gaurav is a Ph.D. student in biomedical engineering, science, and health systems, and he is the executive chair of the EGA. Gaurav will tell us about some student-led initiatives to facilitate interdisciplinary research areas.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. I'm not going to talk about my research. That will make it too technical. But what I'm going to talk about is that, re-emphasizing this philosophy of interdisciplinary research, and GSO is playing its role, Drexel University is playing its role, and there's some role that students also have to play. So all the parts fit in together so we can actually have an effective framework for interdisciplinary research. So I'll talk about some student-led initiatives to facilitate it. First, we need to, little appreciation of what are the drivers of interdisciplinary research. One of the things is when people meet, they talk, they come from different disciplines, there's always some new knowledge created. And so there's creativity, there's innovation, there is birth of new disciplines altogether. Say, nanotechnology or nanobiotechnology. These fields did not exist 10 years ago. But as the chemists and physicists and material scientists came together and they discussed ideas, so new fields came up. And these new fields can address new challenges, more complex problems. So that makes the interdisciplinary research so attractive, and everybody wants to pursue them because they can address the multidimensional problems which extend beyond a single dimension of a discipline. Well, from researchers' perspective, once you start to address those problems, it does give you the opportunity for doing some high-impact research. So you go into this nice fancy journals, and you get wide readership. It also keeps you ahead of other people. Suppose you're seeking a job, and as soon as you get into a job, you're developing a product, you need to talk to people in manufacturing, you need to talk to people in R&D, you need to talk to people in law and legal policies, you need to talk to people in marketing, how to take your product through, how to convey your emotions to your customers. So if you have worked in more interdisciplinary area, you can appreciate all these connections, and you're a better candidate than others to probably find a job or probably succeed at your job. And of course, funding. So these days, the funding has been dwindling for whether it's academia, there are no jobs. The thing is, when you start to borrow technology from other disciplines and try to apply it to your own problems, it automatically becomes novel. And it qualifies for funding for novel ideas, funding for novel activities. Let us say somebody is working in, well, my background is biomed, so I'll try to give an example like that. So a mechanical engineer uses his techniques and technology to solve a biomedical problem. Now, if there's funding drying out in mechanical engineering domain, he can go and search for funding in biomed domain. So his avenues of seeking funding increase. Okay, so all these are drivers for pursuing interdisciplinary who is my friend, who sits next table to me, who works next door. I'll probably not, walk down to College of Arts and Sciences or Business College or maybe any other department. So the idea of, or the philosophy behind all these student-led initiatives is to bring people out of the shell, create opportunities for them to connect, to converse, and then to combine. So, well, the initiatives that we have is, of course, Books and Bagels. GSA and GSO has been pushing it, and Dr. Lim clearly stated all the philosophy behind, and I also re-emphasized it. So we want to do things like Books and Bagels to bring people together from all disciplines so that they can appreciate each other's research. The other thing which we are working on, and probably this quarter will have one or two of those seminars, is Interdisciplinary Research Seminar Series. We are focusing in this more within the College of Engineering so that a researcher from one department inside College of Engineering can go to a different department and talk about the research that he does so that people in the other department can appreciate what nice things he's doing and if their skill set overlaps with the skill set of the presenter and if they can collaborate. So that will be more technical, this is more general, and this platform is more like appreciating the interdisciplinary research. That platform is more like participating in interdisciplinary research. The third thing that it's in beta version, we have this thing on Drexel GSA website, which is Lab Outsource Forum. We came up with an idea like we all work and do research, and there are several things in our research which we are not an expert on. So we do connect with people. I'm doing some research. I'll probably connect with somebody in School of Public Health to do some statistical analysis on it. We all do that. But if we have a forum, let's say I'm doing some research. I don't know anybody in School of Public Health, but I just put up on the forum, this is the research I'm doing. I'm looking for a collaborator for doing statistical analysis for me. Or I'm developing a device. I put it up on the forum. I want somebody from mechanical engineering to maybe do mathematical modeling or simulation for my device. Or I put it up on the forum and I want somebody from the law school to look into the IPR, intellectual property rights and stuff for my work. So we have a lot of potential within the university. So this inter-university forum can harness that potential. So it will bring everybody on the same platform and it will create more opportunities for interaction and communication. And I think this is what I have for today. And I think we all have our roles to play and we all need to work together for this thing to work. And if we create a conducive environment for interdisciplinary research, it is ultimately going to benefit us. It is going to benefit the students, the faculty, and the university in general. Thank you very much.
Questions, suggestions, advice? I do have one. I did go to the GSA website just by chance 2 days ago and saw that Lab Outsource Forum that you mentioned. And that was the first time that I had seen it. So how are you advertising all of these initiatives?
But ideally, we want that Lab Outsource Forum to be hosted, but we have the control over GSA website and we put it up there just as a trial to see like if people really use it and how beneficial it can be. But ideally we want it to be on probably College of Engineering website because it's research and take it out into the journal or something. It in a way quickens the whole process.
I was just wondering about whether the general graduate student body is aware that you have this resource.
But we try to send out email or talk about it in our general meetings, but we also wanted to use this platform to kick it off.
Right. Then now that the Office of Graduate Studies is starting a newsletter, perhaps you can help to advertise that resource. Thank you. Questions? No? All right. Left my little sheet behind, so I don't know who's up next. Oh, next up is Marina Puzakova, who is a Ph.D. candidate in marketing. Marina's work is in the area of brand positioning strategies produced by a more complete understanding of humanization and firms' crisis management. Obviously, that's very topical in light of what's happening out of the coast of Giglio Island in Italy for the cruise companies who promise people a fantastic vacation on the high seas. Marina?
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Lim said, first of all, he introduced such a wonderful topic, and he said that I have to talk about why I got into this area, so I have no idea how I got there. But anyway, I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate in marketing department, and a fifth year means that it's been a very long journey, and it's going to be over in a couple of months. And also it means that it was a pretty successful journey because now I have a job that is very important, and I'm going to be joining the marketing faculty at Oregon State University. So, and I'd like just to share with you some of the research I've been doing. As Dr. Lee mentioned, I was interested in negative information in the marketplace, and just to give you several examples, year 2010, there was lots of recall, millions of recall by Toyota, Japanese automaker. Then there was followed by the recall of Ford Fusion Hybrid. There was a lot of brake problems. So Johnson & Johnson, Tylenol recall, and some other recalls, which was followed by mismanagement and unethical behavior of companies. So as you can see, there is lots and lots of negative information in the marketplace. So what I'm interested in is actually how consumers process, how they see all that information, how they react to all this information. And on the top of that, what are the certain marketing communication, what the firms can do that can change or modify consumers' view of that negative information. So there are two broad areas that I'm looking at. First is the effect of color in how color affects consumer processing of that information. And second is how humanized positioning of the brand affect the processing of that information. And I will tell a little bit later what I mean by humanized positioning of the brand. So in terms of color, you can think probably it's very counterintuitive. How can color affect consumer process of such a firm's failures, right? But actually research in marketing shows that color has very powerful effects on how people behave, whether they comply, for example, to health messages, whether they are involved in risk-taking behavior. So, and what we do with my collaborators, with my advisor, is that we give participants in our research, we give them first negative information, and then we give them how the advertisement from the company. And this is just an example. So we show them like different pictures in different colors. We also have black and white condition. So you can see that this is very subtle manipulation of color. This is just like a background of the CEO of the company, and you can see like there is a tie, which is also a different color. And it's very interesting that at the end, when we ask people's attitude to the same exact problem, people have different responses based on what color they saw the advertisements of the communication. So we are looking at across different types of firms fail. Is it unethical failure, or is it the product recall, and how the company responds to that as well. So this is the first area, first type of marketing communication I'm looking at. So the second one, as I mentioned, is humanization, humanized positioning of the brand. It's a very interesting term that is used. It's called anthropomorphization, but no one ever can pronounce it, only me, because I So, but just to give you an example, an idea of what it is, it's basically giving some of the human features to the product, right? So, just presenting the product like M&M's, Brexton sour cream, California raisins, looking like a human, attributing some of the human characteristics to a product. So, and if the brand is positioned in that way, the product is positioned with the human characteristics, it's very likely that the product can fail as well, right? So, just to give you an example, in May 2006, the M&M branded menorahs, this is, you can see the picture, they were recalled from the market because of the potential fire hazard. Then later, the same brand experienced in 2008 in September, experienced again a problem. So some of the candies were found to be poisonous. They were also recalled from the market. So what we are looking is that if this brand M&M's is positioned with human features, as opposed to it would be just like Hershey's, just a brand of chocolate, would it have different effects on how consumers process that information? And just to give you a couple of examples from my research, how we do it, I created those advertisements. I don't know whether you can see well, but this is the bottle of a juice that was like sitting on the chair wearing a human hat, looking like a human, right? This is just a bottle standing on the table next to the chair. This is a product, the other one, and in one picture you can see the human shape behind the product. It's a humanized positioning. This has nothing, no human shapes or no human disposition. And then when people that respond and see this types of advertisements, they are later given some negative information, and we also measure what is the attitude. And we actually found that when people saw the humanized positioning of the brand, they actually reacted more negatively because they expect more, because they have connections to that product. So this is just briefly what I've been doing, what my research is. Actually, it involves a lot of interdisciplinary work already, because to investigate this phenomena, I was looking at the literature from communication, from media, from PR, from psychology, from sociology, developmental psychology. It involved a lot of work to dig into these different areas, and maybe expertise from people who work in the area could be very beneficial for the work as well. So it could be very helpful. And also there is lots of opportunities from the methods of biomedical engineering as well, because it's very important to understand, not only to ask with a paper and pencil format, not only to ask the questions from people, what they think, but it's interesting to see what's actually going on in their heads. To use optical imaging or fMRI studies so they can scan, they can show the picture, and you can see which area of brain is activated. So this is another important area of probably future research. So that was briefly what I wanted to tell you. Thank you so much.
Questions? Very quiet group in the audience.
My question isn't
Oh,
exactly
good.
formed, but you're going to this new position. Do you have an idea of where you'd like to continue going with your research? I know it's like a horrible question.
I felt like I'm in the job market again. I've been asked the question several times. I have several other projects in that area, so looking at different types of formed response, and different types of communication, and different media, because all these factors, there's just millions and millions of factors to look at. So I'm just considering building on that specific topics and doing more research.
Have you looked at all at like social media interaction?
Not yet, but it's definitely a very good direction to go.
Maybe for the benefit of the people who are in the market looking for jobs. Did any part of your research help you in securing this wonderful position at OSU?
Not that much research, but where the research ended up helped a lot, because, for example, the last study was just invited for revision. It was like a Christmas present in a journal of marketing, which is a top journal in our field. So it definitely helped. I have some other publications. So of course, when you go for job market, people look what is your performance and where you ended up publishing. That's of course important, because it's an indication. Your research could be really interesting, but you can't go further with that if you didn't publish that. So you have to have a proof of publication record. You have to have it. It's important.
Thank you, Marina. Alison Novak is a Ph.D. candidate in culture and communications, where, as its website proudly proclaims, students and faculty work collaboratively across disciplines, asking questions outside the box of each discipline alone. If you march to a different drama, this is where you belong. Is it any wonder that we've got Alison here on the panel? Alison is going to be telling us a little bit about generational identity and its ties to perceptions of technology through media's effect on youth and popular culture.
Hi, everyone. Hello. As I stand up here beating to another drum. I'll introduce myself. I am a PhD student in the Department of Culture and Communication at COAS. And I'm in the second year of my program, which is getting ready to take my qualifying exams. So this is sort of the direction that I hope my research will be taking. But as it is in its very beginning stages, I'm really looking forward to your feedback, criticisms, ridicule, jokes, whatever you have to offer. So my primary area of research are the millennials and how they interact with the media. Now, the millennials are a generation which you're probably all very familiar with if you're not, in fact, a member of it yourself. And we'll get into it in a little bit exactly who the millennials are and why it's important that we talk about them. But the millennials are also a part of me. I'm a member of the millennial generation. I came right from undergrad, which means that I started my PhD at 22. So I'm at the peak of the millennial generation. I'm right in the middle. And that's obviously where a lot of my identity comes from, anytime I have to tell anyone about this. So really my interest in this subject area came from my own personal identity with the millennial generation, as well as what I was seeing going on in the media itself. All right, so what we'll talk about today is just exactly who the millennials are, what's going on with them in the media, and how that could potentially start to change the way that we have to do things like process education, the way they sort of identify with each other, and how it'll go on to influence all these other various academic interests that we have. So the millennial generation is also known as the Generation Y, Generation Me, the Facebook generation, the dumbest generation, and Generation Stall. The names might sound familiar to you. Those are pop culture names for them, as well as academic ones, with all of those names in them. So they're probably a little bit more familiar than they should be, I guess. They were born from 1979 to 2001, which means right now they're about 13 years old, all the way to 32, somewhere around there. The numbers aren't exactly very specific because people flow in and out of generations if they were born around those birth dates. It's about a 22-year age span, which is also very standard for generations. But it's important to note that the millennials are a humongous generation. Right now on the face of the earth, there's more millennials than there are any other generation out there. So that includes the Generation X, which is right before the baby boomers, which had prior been the biggest generation, and the GI generation, or the World War II generation. So those are the guys that are out there competing with the millennials. Now, it's also important to study the millennials because they're entering into the work world right now as we speak. So they're going through a lot of things like they're going through a recession, they're trying to find jobs in a time when we typically don't necessarily see young people getting jobs right now. So there's a lot of new things that's going on with them. One of the other interesting things that's going on with the millennials as they grew up was they were interested in a lot of new technologies that hadn't been there before. The internet was invented and started widely used during their, well, not invented, it was invented prior, but it started being widely used when the millennials were growing up. Same thing with video games, cell phones, social networking sites, computer technology. And as we've seen, there's been a lot of controversy with those things. We don't necessarily know if those are positives or negatives yet in our society. As social scientists and other scientists here, we probably are very positive. But we can easily see in the media that there's two sides to that debate, right? You can also see that politically when you look at something like video games back in the 1990s. There's a lot of controversy over those video games, right? They were trying to make legislation against them, legislation for them, and that's died out a little bit, but that's just sort of the peak of a lot of that interest in, is that technology going to be good or bad for this generation? There's also one other thing that you are probably all very familiar with that makes this generation very different. Has anyone here ever gotten an email or a phone call from a student's parents telling them, if you give my student a B+, not an A-? Those are helicopter parents, and if you have gotten that phone call or email, that's because you've got a millennial in your can also see that with an increased focus on standardized testing scores that happened during the millennial generation. Those are all new things. Those are all things that make this generation different. And in addition, they're very big generation, so we have to pay attention to what some of these new things are. Now, what also is going on with this generation is they are being talked about in the media very differently than their predecessors. So typically, when we see the media talk about something, they'll take on one particular view of it. If we talk about the GI generation, there were very positive to the World War II efforts of that generation. There wasn't a lot of criticism, and the criticism when it was there was generally outweighed by this. That's not going on with this generation. And one of the areas of my research has been looking at what exactly is going on in the media regarding them. And what we found are these two humongous discourses or narratives that flow through. And it doesn't matter if you're looking at TV, newspapers, internet, whatever medium you choose, you're going to find these two narratives. Doesn't matter if you're looking at conservative, liberal, they're still going to be there. So we'll talk about what those two big guys are and why that could potentially be a problem. So the first is that the millennials are going to save the world. All right? You've probably heard this. This is actually a title that comes off from the New York Times 2 years ago, front page of the education section. All right, so they are very positive, very optimistic. This generation is going to be the generation to do it. It's because they have helicopter parents. It's because they can use technology. That texting, that's awesome. They can text. They can get together faster than ever. Social networking, Facebook, that's going to make them better connected. And because of all that, they're going to get us out of the recession. They're going to save the world. And they're probably going to save all the other generations that come after as well. So very positive, optimistic, a little bit blindingly so narrative that's going on. And that's the first one. So you can guess what the second one might be. It's the millennials will doom us all. This comes from the front page of the editorial section of the Wall Street Journal. This is the second narrative that we talk about. This is, the millennials are going to kill us all. It's because they can't tie their shoes. It's because all they can do is text each other. They've become so reliant on technology, on their parents, on the older generations, that they've lost sight of a lot of the goals, aims, and abilities that we traditionally need in our society. You can see those are two really big extremes, right? There's a lot of difference between what those two things are. And potentially that can cause a lot of problems, and that's something we're starting to take a look at in my research, and that's the direction I hope that it takes. So those two tensions produce a lot of identity between them. Okay? Whether it is you're a millennial hearing those things about yourself, or you're a member of another generation and you're hearing about the millennials, in some way it's impacting you and helping you to perceive that generation, people of those generations. And so when we talk about tension-producing identity, we can say that, look, there's really no clear consensus on how this generation is going to turn out. And in turn, that's being embodied by the generation, and it's helping that identity create this sort of crisis period. So we see that a lot of people are talking about the quarter-life crisis. That comes out of this tension. That's one of the things that's been produced from this. So a lot of these common things that we start talking about in pop culture are actually produced as a result of these mega discourses and narratives that are going on in the media. Now, why is that important for interdisciplinary research? Well, in 2015, which I know is right around the corner, there's going to be a different type of rapture happening, okay? And this is going to happen with the millennials will be at the peak of entering into the workforce, at the exact same moment when the baby boomers are at the peak of leaving the workforce, okay? We haven't seen a great shift like that since the periods in the Great Depression all the way through World War II. Obviously, that's sort of an idealized format. People have been entering and leaving the workforce for a long time, but it'll be this mega shift that's occurring. We're going to see a change in ideology. This is one of the things that's big time predicted that goes along with this. So the change in identity, the change in attitudes towards the workplace, the change in identity towards business workplace, engineering, they're going to start designing things differently. They're going to start demanding different types of products. They're going to start looking for different types of jobs. They're going to have different priorities. And that's the type of thing that we have to start thinking about because 2015 is right around the corner. And those discourses that we see going on in the media, which is what I'm particularly interested in, are actually going to be shaping a lot of the things that could potentially be happening in 2015. Thank you very much.
Questions? Yeah.
I know you. Just so everybody else knows. And I love your research. And I guess today what this made me think a lot about is this is a very Western kind of group of this worldwide generation. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about maybe people that don't have access to these technologies or infrastructure
And so they sort of subscribe to their own type of generational understanding, but still some of the same things happen. I think, although they're still very separate concepts, if we look at something like last year being the year of a protester, and that was something that was very much a globalized concept. It didn't matter where you were in the world, there was some sort of protest, whether it be an actual stand-up and fight kind of protest or a social media protest going on. And so I think it's sort of starting to trickle down to these other areas as we become more of a globalized society. Some of these effects start to take place no matter where you are. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely something that's a very much a Western concept and phenomenon.
I saw some hands up.
That answers my question.
Yes.
Okay, so I just found out what a millennial was yesterday. So I'm wondering, what do you think in your research so far? Do you think the millennials will save the world or will doom?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both. But anytime you've got one of those major narratives that's really positive or really negative, you're going to see people that are sort of like, whoa, you don't know me, like I'm going to do my own thing. And I think that might actually be something that's happening here. There was a series of studies a couple of years ago. It's called the You Don't Know Me studies, and they sit down millennials and they'd say, can you describe a millennial, describe someone of this generation? And they write it out and they write down who they are. And they can write them all out, and then at the end they go, are you a millennial? And they go, God, no. Like, you don't know me at all. And so that's the type of reaction we're starting to see. And you can do that with a lot of different types of cultures that are part of the millennial generation. So you can do that with race groups, you can do that with particular social movements, like the hipsters do the exact same thing. All right. So these are all different products of sort of these competing discourses and narratives that we have going on.
Alison, I was wondering, intrigued that when you talked about that comment about how millennials will save the world,
Yeah.
you associated it with the New York Times.
Yes, it
And then when
is.
you said that they were going to doom us all, you associated it with the Wall Street Journal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
Any connection between the
Well, I think traditionally, yeah, there probably would be some connection, but we could also, those are both newspapers. If we were to look at conservative and liberal accounts on TV, they sort of both say they're doomed. If you were to look at them on the internet, like any type of blogs or anything, they say they're going to save the world. So I think maybe in newspapers there's definitely still that divide, but across the mediums, it's not necessarily the same. Yeah.
One more question, I'm going to get off my chest and then I'll
I was going to say, like, is it because the millennials think they're going to save the world and all the other generations think that we're going to kill them?
Yeah, hopefully not, but well, I think part of it is definitely the media is driving this discourse because there is a lot of interest in the millennials. One of the things that's going on is because we have all those new technologies and because we have those new types of parenting, we don't necessarily know what the outcomes are. So anytime you have a lot of confusion with it, there's going to be a tension placed, and I think that's why the media in general has tried to take such a firm stance on those issues. But unfortunately, it's come out in these really competing ways. But hopefully, no one will be killing the millennial generation that fast.
I wonder if you see any narratives that are like, instead of like coming from the millennials, I guess, instead of we're going to save the world, sort of like, you've all messed it up so bad already that like we're throwing up our hands. Like not we're dooming it, not like we're going to be the end because we can't function, but just like it's already so sort of on the downside that like, you know, we're done. Like we can't sort of.
Yeah, I think, and there definitely are, there's some blogs out there by millennials who are definitely like, you know, look what you left us, no wonder we're all doomed. Generally, although it's always been very consistent with Generation X has always been blamed for any type of negative issue we're in now, so that would be the Reagan generation, that would be sort of the people that are part of that type of movement. And so we can see that in politics, right, they blame traditionally that group of people. They're like, global warming, politics, we're in a bad economy. Let's blame Generation X. So very consistent framing to it, but not necessarily very positive. But definitely, I think as the millennials start to get older, they start to pick up on these narratives. Obviously, it's not something we automatically pay attention to. And so we do see a lot of people fighting against that. So there's supposed to be a millennial march coming up in August, I believe, that is going to be sort of a march to get jobs back for the millennials themselves, not necessarily for these other groups that would also be facing unemployment. So I think they're starting to take a little bit more of a stance on the issue themselves, and obviously it's just a product of getting older.
I'd like to continue the flow of questions, but I also have an obligation to make sure that our last speaker has we will entertain another round of questions for all the speakers. And so let me now introduce Anmiv Prabhu. He's the last of our speakers, Ph.D. candidate in biomedical engineering science and health systems. His interest is in next generation pathogenic detection using solid-state nanopores drilled in ultra-thin insulating membranes to separate single molecules. Anmiv.
And that's only the title of my research. So, good morning everyone. I'm Anmiv, and I'm a doctoral candidate working under Dr. Kim, who's in the mechanical department. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to introduce you all to my research, which very simply put, it revolves around developing the next generation of detection and analytical platforms. Before I begin, let me just familiarize everyone with the core concept that lies at the heart of my research. And I'll try and keep this as basic and as general as possible. So the concept is called the Coulter-Counter principle. And just imagine, if you will, that you have an electrolytic half cell. You have two electrolytic half cells. Basically, it's just two reservoirs filled with an electrolyte. And these two reservoirs are separated by an insulating membrane that has a single hole in it. Now it is pretty easy to see that the amount of electricity that this cell will conduct, or the amount of ions that can flow from one reservoir to the other, would depend on the size of the pore. The larger the pore, the more ions that can go through, and hence the greater the amount of electricity, and vice versa. Now, if in one of the compartments you have analyte particles that are comparable in size to this pore, and under the effect of some force, we make these particles go through the pore. What would happen is, as they are going through the pore, they temporarily occupy space within the pore, thereby leaving less room for ions to flow. Thus, if you are monitoring the current across the cell over a period of time, what you will see is that as these analytes are going through the pore, the current will actually drop. And this decrease in current, or a current blockade, can hence be used to detect and count the particles in a chamber as they go through the pore. This is a very simple concept. It is not even new. It was patented by W.H. Coulter in 1953. And there's a couple of interesting things about this. There's a couple of interesting things about this. Seems to be a slide missing. In any case, the shape of the current signature would also depend on the shape of the particle. For example, if you have a smaller particle, it will occupy lesser space within the pore, and there will be a greater current through it. On the other hand, if you have a longer particle, it will occupy its space within the pore for a longer time, and hence you will have a longer current blockade. This is also known as a current signature. But one interesting thing here is that in order for us to be able to detect these particles, they should be comparable in size to the pore. If the particle is too small, it occupies far too little space in the pore, and we can't see an appreciable decrease in the current. So back when this principle was conceptualized and patented, existing technologies only allowed them to make pores that were a couple of microns in diameter. And even using these pores, people developed a device called Coulter-Counter, which is routinely used even today to count and size individual cells in a solution. However, over the last couple of years, advances in nanofabrication technologies have made it possible to make pores that are way, way smaller, that are only a few nanometers in diameter. Now let's think about this for a second. Some of us would have heard that a nanometer is a billionth of a meter. But to actually put things in perspective, here is an image of a pore which is roughly 40 nanometers in diameter, which means that I could fit 2,000 of these pores side by side on the diameter of one human hair. That is how small these structures are. But more practically, what this means is that these structures are now comparable in size to individual biomolecules such as DNA or proteins, meaning that we can use these structures to detect and analyze these molecules. Now this opens up a whole variety of different applications, but today I'd only like to discuss the most popular and also one of the most promising applications, and that is the prospect of ultra-fast DNA sequencing. Remember how I said that the shape of the current signature would depend on the structure of the molecule? why is this important? Well, a lot of us again would have heard of the Human Genome Project. It took them about 3 years and about $4 billion to sequence all the DNA from just one person. Now, if a device such as this is realized, you will be able to achieve the same capabilities in under an hour and for as little as $100. Now, there's still a lot of practical problems that need to be overcome, but there's already startup companies that are poised to launch markets using similar that are poised to launch products in the market using a similar concept in the next couple of years. So what this will do is it will completely revolutionize our view towards healthcare, and it will usher in an era of personalized medicine, where as soon as a child is born, his or her DNA can be sequenced, and the doctors would immediately know the risk factors that an individual has to different environmental conditions, if at all he can have any adverse side effects to certain drugs, or how likely he or she is to develop an allergic reaction to certain conditions. And in that sense, instead of having a generalized good health regime for the population in general, what we can have is a personalized healthcare regime for each individual. So that is the dream of this technology, and hopefully it will be realized soon, and we should have really fast DNA sequencing in the next couple of years. There are, I only had 10 minutes to talk. There's a lot of other applications, but I thought this would be one that people would appreciate most. But to conclude, I'd like to state that advances in nanofabrication have vastly increased the capabilities of a Coulter counter device, and solid-state nanopore platforms, just the ones that I just talked about, hold great promise for developing the next generation of detection and analysis platforms. Now, my research in itself is rather multidisciplinary. For example, when I actually make my pores, there's a lot of material science that goes into understanding how these pores are made. And then there's a lot of biomed and basic biology that goes into understanding how different molecules would interact with these structures. And there's also a lot of electrical engineering that goes in there to develop proper systems that can record really low quantities of current and measure how there is decreases in current. And me being from a really small town in India called Baroda, I feel very fortunate to be a part of this multidisciplinary research. And yeah, it's been good. I'm almost towards the end of my Ph.D. now, and this is what I've been working on over the past couple of years. So I'm sure you might have some questions in the past that you haven't understood. I'd be glad to answer.
Question?
So I think you did a fantastic job of explaining these concepts and making it understandable. I just applaud you on that for one. And I think you get into talking about the larger public health implications of this, which carry with it other interdisciplinary issues of legal, personal health information, and just sort of the ethical issues that might be